History is not simply the study of the past, but the explanation for the present. The Holdovers stars Paul Giamatti as Paul Human, Dominic Sessa as Angus, and Da'Vine Joy Randolph as Mary, and is directed by Alexander Payne. I'm just going to say it right off the bat. This is a fantastic movie. I left the theater with a big smile on my face and some tears in my eyes still. It's so emotionally resonating. I absolutely loved this film. The story of this film is so simplistic, but is filled with so much depth in its execution. A few students get left behind at their boarding school over the winter break, and Paul, who's played by, you guessed it, Paul Giamatti, is the old grumpy history teacher that's forced to stay behind and look after them. These students who are staying over winter break are called the Holdovers. I like how at the beginning of this film, there's multiple boys who are staying back. It's not just Angus by himself, but there's like 5 or 6 of them. And it gives a fun dynamic. I actually was getting a lot of inspiration from the Breakfast Club throughout the first act of this film. The dynamics, the relationships, the language, the relation to the teacher, it all had a very similar Breakfast Club vibe, and I have no doubt that there was some inspiration taken from that, specifically because Alexander Payne is just infusing the 70s and 80s into this film. That was, I think, his main goal was to make a 70s film. The first time I saw the trailer for this movie was before Oppenheimer, and I remember I was so taken back. I was like, this is such a good trailer. It harkens back to that 70s vibe and aesthetic. It's like, I can't remember the last time I saw a trailer with a deep-voiced narrator that's giving all these corny lines. I was like, wow, what a dopamine hit of nostalgia. But I remember watching that show and I was like, it's probably just a marketing ploy. It's probably just some clever trailer company like, let's market it like this, hit on some nostalgia, and the film's not going to have that tone or feel. But on the contrary, when I found out this film was really shot and executed like a 70s film, I was ecstatic. And the film absolutely nails it. But let me say something. The 70s aesthetic does not overshadow the film itself. It just enhances the experience of the story. It's a wonderful complement to the overall production of the film. So eventually all the boys get to leave the boarding school because one of the boys' parents comes and picks him up and says all the other guys can go skiing with him. But Angus isn't allowed to go because they aren't able to reach his parents. And without permission, he's forced to stay back with Paul Giamatti's character as the only student in the school. And I think that is when the film goes from good to great. The relationship between Paul and Angus and Mary, who plays the cook at the school, is the heartbeat of this film. They're all going through their own battles, but nothing is over the top. Everything in their performances, everything about the characters feels so nuanced, feels so deep. They're very complicated characters, but they all bounce off each other so well. Performance-wise, everyone knocks it out of the park. Everyone gives an incredible performance, but I have to talk about Paul Giamatti for a few minutes. This man may have given his best performance of his career. He was so good in this role. The way he's able to strike a balance between being so unlikable but so lovable, and the relationship that is formed between him and Angus, almost this father-son dynamic, something that Angus is missing in his life and plays a very central role into the climax of this film. But it's such a joy to watch because they're at such opposing odds throughout a majority of the first half of this film, but then they start to let each other in. They start to open up to each other, and it's just wonderful. It's just a wonderful dynamic. And then also playing into that is Mary, who almost has this motherly, maternal feel to her character as well, but she is someone in grieving. She lost her son to the Vietnam War, and this is her first holiday without her son. And I've got to say, they handle her character beautifully. They don't have her sulk in the misery of her son's loss, but it's handled with such care, it's handled with such authenticity, where those waves of emotion come and go. And especially at the holidays where they can really, really hit hard. This movie is just so heartwarming. It pays off on so many emotional beats, and the characters in the film all have such wonderful arcs of overcoming tragedy and loss, of learning to grow up and to push forward, of growing beyond who you are and what you've been stuck in. These are just a few of the themes that are captured within this film. I would be suffice to say that this film is long. And I went and saw it with my wife, and she walked out of the theater and she said, I really liked it, but it did feel long. I, on the other hand, absolutely adored this film. I was sucked into it from the first moment to the last frame of the film. I didn't have a problem with the length. I didn't have a problem with the pacing, but it is over 2 hours long. And for some, that's going to be a little bit of a grind. But I think the characters are so lovable that throughout the film, you're going to find reasons to get hooked back into it. And so while it's long, it redeems itself throughout the film to justify its runtime, to justify the length. And in my opinion, is all very necessary scenes and moments and emotional beats that you really can't leave on the cutting room floor. With all that being said, I highly recommend that you go see this movie in theaters. This is one of those films that you want to go see in theaters at the holiday time with friends and family around you. It's going to be a joy. You definitely don't want to miss out on it. And I'd love to hear what you think. Have you seen The Holdovers yet? Are you planning to go see it? Why or why not? Leave a comment below. I'd love to talk about it with you there. And as always, make sure to like and subscribe to Dude Reacts and Fellow Dude on YouTube. Until next time, see you then.